Here's something that sounds like the kind of thing a motivational poster would say, but is actually just mathematics. The person earning $40,000 a year can retire wealthier than the person earning $120,000 a year. Not in some rare edge case, not with some complicated investment strategy unavailable to regular people, just with a difference in one number, one ratio. The relationship between what comes in and what gets kept. And here's the thing that makes this more than just an interesting mathematical fact. Most people who hear it immediately assume it applies to someone else, that it requires heroic sacrifice or unusual circumstances, or a level of financial discipline that regular human beings can't sustain. It doesn't. It requires understanding one thing clearly enough to act on it consistently. And that one thing is what this entire video is about. My name is Dave, and I love helping people see that the variable they've been ignoring is the one that actually determines where they end up. Let's start with the number most people never calculate about themselves: your savings rate, not your income, not your investment returns, not which funds you picked or which accounts you opened, your savings rate, the percentage of what you earn that you actually keep and put to work. Because here's the thing about savings rate that almost nobody explains clearly. It's the only variable in the wealth building equation that you have near complete control over. Market returns fluctuate, income takes time to grow, tax rates change, but the gap between what you earn and what you spend is a decision you make every single month. And that decision compounds over decades in a way that makes the starting income number almost irrelevant. Let me show you what I mean with actual numbers. Person A earns $40,000 a year. They save 25% of their gross income. That's $10,000 a year. $833 a month going into a simple index fund. Person B earns $120,000 a year. They save 8% of their gross income. That's $9,600 a year. $800 a month going into the same index fund. Same monthly investment. Same market returns. Same everything except the income that produced it. At 8% annual returns over 35 years, both of them retire with approximately $1.6 million. The person earning 3 times as much built the same wealth because they saved the same amount. Income didn't determine the outcome, the savings rate did. Now push that further. What if person A saves 30% instead of 25%? $12,000 a year, $1,000 a month. Over 35 years at 8%, that becomes $1.93 million. Person A on $40,000 a year retires with more money than person B earning $120,000. That's not a motivational poster. That's just what the compound interest formula produces when you change the savings rate variable. But here's the part that actually matters for someone on a lower income. And this is the piece most financial content completely skips over. Low earners have a structural advantage that almost nobody talks about. It's called the lifestyle gap advantage. And it works like this. When you earn a low income, your lifestyle has already adjusted to that income. You're not driving a $45,000 truck. You're not living in a $2,500 a month apartment. You're not eating out 4 times a week as the standard operating mode. Your cost of living, however uncomfortable it sometimes feels, is already calibrated to a lower number. Now, what happens when you start redirecting 20 or 25% of that income to savings and investments? The lifestyle doesn't have far to compress. You're already living lean. The sacrifices required to hit a 25% savings rate on $40,000 are real, but they're not dramatic because there isn't much lifestyle inflation to reverse. You're not giving up a luxury car payment or a premium apartment or a restaurant habit. You're making adjustments to an already lean operating budget. Compare that to the high earner trying to achieve the same savings rate. They've built their life around the income. The mortgage is sized to the salary. The cars are sized to the salary. The restaurants, the travel, the subscriptions, the private school, all of it expanded to meet the income over years of lifestyle inflation. Getting to a 25% savings rate from that position requires dismantling a lifestyle that has emotional weight and social expectations attached to every component. It is genuinely harder, even though the income is 3 times larger. The low earner doesn't have that problem. The lifestyle is already lean. The gap to a high savings rate is smaller, even if the absolute dollar amount is smaller too. That's the lifestyle gap advantage, and it's real. Now, let me show you what specific savings rates actually produce at lower income levels, so this stops being abstract. At $35,000 annual income, saving 15%, which is $5,250 a year, or $437 a month, at 8% returns over 40 years produces $1.27 million. Saving 20%, which is $7,000 a year, or $583 a month, over the same period produces $1.69 million. Saving 25%, which is $8,750 a year, or $729 a month, produces $2.12 million. At $45,000 annual income, saving 15%, which is $6,750 a year, or $562 a month, over 40 years produces $1.63 million. Saving 20%, which is $9,000 a year or $750 a month, produces $2.17 million. Saving 25%, which is $11,250 a year or $937 a month, produces $2.71 million. At $55,000 annual income, saving 15%, which is $8,250 a year or $687 a month, over 40 years produces $1.99 million. Saving 20%, which is $11,000 a year or $916 a month, produces $2.66 million. Saving 25%, which is $13,750 a year or $1,145 a month, produces $3.32 million. Every single one of those outcomes produces a millionaire on salaries that most financial content would describe as too low to build serious wealth. The variable that produces the difference between $1.27 million and $3.32 million isn't the income level, it's the savings rate applied to it. That's the number you control. That's the lever that moves the outcome. Here's where this gets really interesting. And this is the part most people don't see coming. The 40-year timeline in those calculations assumes you start and maintain the savings rate with no increases, no raises, no additional contributions, just the same percentage of the same income for 4 decades. But that almost never happens. Incomes grow over time, even modestly. Every time your income increases and your lifestyle doesn't increase proportionally, the surplus goes directly to your savings rate. And a savings rate that rises from 15% to 20% to 25% over a career does something to those compound interest projections that genuinely changes the picture. A person who starts at $35,000 saving 15% and gradually increases their savings rate as income grows, reaching 25% by their mid-career peak, doesn't retire with $1.27 million. They retire with something closer to $2 million, sometimes more, because every incremental increase in savings rate compounds on top of what was already there. This is why the lifestyle gap advantage matters so much in the early years. If you start lean and stay lean while income grows, every raise becomes almost entirely deployable to savings instead of lifestyle. The high earner who inflated their lifestyle to match every raise has nothing left to redirect. The low earner who kept costs steady while income grew has been quietly accelerating the whole time. Let's talk about the specific mechanics of how you actually do this on a lower income. Because the math is one thing, the practical reality is another. The first move is identifying your actual savings rate right now. Not what you think it is, what it actually is. Take what you saved last month, divide by your gross monthly income, multiply by 100. That's your current savings rate. Most people who do this calculation for the first time discover their savings rate is somewhere between 0 and 6%. The average American savings rate is 4.6%, which means most people reading this have significant room to move the most important number in their financial life. The second move is picking a target savings rate and automating it immediately. Not next month. This month. A percentage that leaves your account the day after payday before your brain registers it as available. Start at whatever feels achievable. 10% if that's genuinely where you can start. 15% if you can stretch to it. The specific percentage matters less than making it automatic and not touching it. The third move is the one that actually separates people who get there from people who don't. Every time your income increases, redirect at least half of the increase to savings before lifestyle has a chance to claim it. You take home $200 more a month from a raise. $100 of that goes to savings immediately. The lifestyle gets $100. The savings rate just improved without your daily life feeling meaningfully different. Do that consistently over a career, and the savings rate that started at 10% quietly becomes 20%, then 25%, while the lifestyle grows slowly enough that the compression never feels dramatic. Here's what I actually want you to take from all of this. The millionaire on a low salary isn't a rare exception or a personal finance fairy tale. It's the predictable output of a specific savings rate applied consistently over time to whatever income is available. The variable that determines your outcome isn't the income you were handed, it's the percentage of it you keep. And that percentage is a decision every single month for as long as you're earning. The person who figured this out at 25 on $38,000 a year is going to retire with more money than the person who earned $95,000 for 30 years and spent most of it on a lifestyle that looked like wealth but wasn't building any. That's not a harsh judgment of the high earner. It's just the math being honest about what actually matters. The income is the raw material, the savings rate is the tool. And unlike the raw material, the tool is entirely yours to decide.